Webinar is yes, is mainly we're going to be diving into key topics about career growth and financial literacy, just to know how we can thrive in both our financial and professional lives this year, because so we need to get in our bags. Um, and also make sure you take notes and just most importantly engage with us in the session. And my name is Zainab Lamina. I'm the student relations manager at APNI. I'm essentially the voice on the team for students across campuses in Ireland, alongside Daniela, my co-host. I've also taken the role of the program lead for the International Men's Day 2025. So we're going to talk more about that shortly. So it's an exciting time, and we're thrilled to have you all with us. And we're thrilled to have you with us. And so so basically we're talking about New Year, New Me, and sorry, personal and professional growth in 2025. So for the agenda of today, we're going to first up, we have Innocent, who is going to be talking about career development. He's going to be giving us sharing valuable insights on career growth and how we can level up our careers in 2025. And then next up, we'll have Yemi, who is going to be talking about how to navigate investment and personal finance. And is going to be sharing his experiences. And just so you know, it's based on personal experience. And they would have Audrey, we'll have a Q&A. So just feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. And then we'll have Audrey, who is going to be talking about the power of networking and how it has helped shape our career and why networking is important. And then we have the another Q&A, and then we go on to let you know of how to join APNI, and we'll close for the day. So for those who don't know, for those who are new or just joining, APNI means African Professional Network of Ireland, and it's mainly we're non-profit, mainly it's a volunteer-led organization, and it's we are dedicated to empower our community in professional and entrepreneurial spaces. We focus on Black, brown, and basically individuals of African descendants, and then our mission basically is just to, like I said, just to empower African professionals and entrepreneurs with resources that are needed to, maximize our potentials and help us in our careers and basically help us grow, all about growth. And we have two goals. Our main goals are championing diverse talent and creating opportunities for everyone, and also strategic alliance with public and public organizations and government leadership, just to ensure our voices are heard. And then we have so we always have events upcoming at PNI, but currently we have the International Women's Day event, which is this year. This year's theme is Accelerate Action. So we're having the bold brunch, which is going to be happening on the 8th of March, 2025 at half eight at Ayat Centric in Dublin. It's mainly it's not just a brunch, it's basically a celebration of bold moves. So we want to have conversation that we know inspire you to make books and make bold moves, no matter how small, how little you think they might be. And we welcome everyone, whether you're a woman, a man, or anyone that supports women, we welcome you and would love to have you there. Just go on our website and you also see you see where you can register and where you can register and sign up. So we're going to go on the agenda for today. We're going to start with Innocent, who is going to be sharing just who's going to be talking about how we can level up our careers this year and how to level up. Innocent is a dedicated technical solutions recruiter with over 3 years of experience in full 360 recruitment, and he has a passion for just helping individuals to fulfill their careers. So, Innocent is just going to take the floor now to just tell us how we can level up our career this year. So I'll just stop sharing. So, Innocent, the floor is yours.
Sorry, you would think in 2025 I would still learn how to unmute my stuff, right? But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me share my screen really quickly just so everybody can see things okay. Is that okay for everybody? We
Yeah.
good? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Zainab has already mentioned, my name is Innocent. Please feel free to call me Inno. The reason why I've rebranded to Inno quite a lot is because it reminds me of back home. This is what my parents and my sisters and used to call me. So I am a handsome South African boy. If nobody else is going to admit it, I'll admit it myself. So born in South Africa, born in Johannesburg. Was quite young when I came to Ireland. I came to Ireland when I was 11 years of age. I'm not gonna, I'll spare you the details in telling you how old I am because it's getting scary at this point. I'll tell you that. But yeah, really, really excited to have you all. Of course, I'm gonna take the floor, talk a little bit about career development, specifically kind of looking at goal setting and professional growth. Couple of things I want to talk about before that. I want to just give you a brief overview of myself. And this is funny for me because all the companies that I've kind of listed here are companies that I've worked in, but these are all kind of like software high-end companies that I've actually worked for in my time. What this really doesn't tell you is the story behind all these companies. So my first job was a retail job, right? To be specific, I worked for a company that was quite early in its days. You might all know it now as Build-A-Bear, which that's what it was before as well. But my first job working for Build-A-Bear was a very, very funny job, if I'm being completely honest. One of the things I used to do was stand outside with a toy reindeer on a leash, and I just literally used to stand there for 4 to maybe 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours, basically as like a brand ambassador, so people could actually start coming in. And for me, that was one of my most embarrassing times because obviously I was working in an area where all my friends knew exactly where I worked, so they would always come take pictures. This is way back in the days of BBM, so BlackBerry Mobile, and back when before Snapchat even became a thing, right? Back in the days of Bebo/MSN, right? Just to show you how old I am. So that's where I started. I moved up in the retail world. I worked for companies like Next. I've also worked for various companies in the food industry as well. Then I started breaking into a little bit more tech side of things. So I've actually worked for hospitality industry, which is really where I feel like I got my big break after I graduated with a human resources degree. That's where I started learning a little bit about how the corporate world would work up until now. From working in the hospitality industry, I moved to Accenture. Um, that was the first time I became a recruiter. I learned everything I needed to learn as a recruiter. However, because I actually studied human resources, I've always had this dream that I've always wanted to be a human resources manager. And that was my thing back in the days. And to be quite honest with you, I really didn't know much about what human resources was, even though I did a master's in it. But I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And for me, that dream was later realized, but at the same time, HR became a thing that I would actually grow to hate. But I didn't know that until went through Accenture, I went through EY, I went through Abbott in human resources. I took up jobs becoming an HR admin. I became a senior admin. I became an HR generalist. Up until I just remembered that the last time I was ever happy in corporate was when I was a recruiter. So I started applying again, and that's where I found my love back at HubSpot. So I worked at HubSpot. That's probably been my longest stint, would be HubSpot. So I worked there for a period of about 3 years. Being a recruiter, I had to unlearn a lot of the things that I'd learned in human resources. If, by the way, if anybody's trying to understand why I'd hate HR, I would always say, let's talk on this side. So I'll tell you everything that you need to know. But it wasn't for me. Human recruitment was for me, and I've always been a recruiter ever since. One of the biggest things about recruitment for me was I was always finding myself asking people one question as an icebreaker, in any of the settings, be it networking with APNI, be it just a normal conversation with acquaintances that will sooner be my friend. And that question was always, so what do you do? Right? And I've always been asking that question because I'm always interested in what people do. I'm always interested in whether, people like the jobs that they do, or if they think maybe there might be something that might be out there for them. And as a result, I've now moved to Datadog as a tech solutions recruiter. I've found myself learning new things, unlearning old things, and yeah, this is where I am right now. So I do also have a handle on TikTok. My name is Inno the Recruiter. If you're ever looking for recruitment tips, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram. So now that I've plugged myself, I'll go straight to the agenda. Before we get there, though, I do have a question, and I'm the type of person that's quite interactive. Okay, so please begin to put your comments in the comment section. Just type either one or two, right? My first question to yourself, or rather, my first thing, if you're this person, just let me know if this resonates with you the most. The first, I suppose, scenario is if I put my head down and I work hard, my work will speak for itself. So if that sounds like you, I'd like for you to type one. But if you're number two and you say, if I shout out to the rooftop, I will get the recognition I deserve, please feel free to type two. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let me see what I can see. I'm seeing a lot of ones. Okay, I'm starting to see some twos. I'm starting to see some ones again. Ones, ones. And this is not surprising to me, if I'm being completely honest. I think you'll find that the ones will definitely supersede the twos, right? And I think that has always been the mentality that I've grown up with as well. I've always been a firm believer that if I put my head down, my managers are going to recognize me and be like, ah, Innocent is doing well. Innocent is fantastic at this job. Do you know what I mean? And you very rarely see a few number twos, right? And for me, I know there's usually no right or wrong answer. To be quite honest with you, this is more of a trick question for me because, and I'll tell you a little bit of why I've actually landed in this particular conclusion, right? So let's explore what number one is and number two. So if you're number one, you're known as a quiet achiever, right? So quiet achievers thrive in a meritocratic or technical or humility-focused culture, right? If you're number two, you're known as a self-promoter. So self-promoters tend to succeed in competitive, fast-paced, or relationship-driven environments. If I'm being completely honest, some of the trends that I'm seeing is that you're not going to be successful unless you're a self-promoter, right? That's just the truth. That's just the reality. You need to have an element of self promotion. Now, the interesting part about this, and the reason why I say there was no right answer, whether you're number one or number two, is because there has to be a number three, a quiet, achieving self promoter, right? And the reason why I say those two things is you need to be able to find a balance between both. And that's why the next point says the most effective strategy is to deliver excellent work while ensuring that your contributions are visible to the right people. You can't be one, you can't be two. You need to be number three if you want to thrive. And the reason behind this is it's so funny because we were talking about Donald Trump before this as well. And one of the things that Donald Trump does really, really well is he's a really, really interesting self-promoter. He's not humble and as a result, he has become quite successful, right? But he's also been a quiet achiever because it wasn't until like I'd say maybe in my late teens that I learned that Trump always had these like, Trump towers and whatnot. But for the most part, he's been a self-promoter, but he's always found a way to strike a balance between being a quiet achiever and a self-promoter. But now he's actually nothing but a self-promoter, and that's it. He's not a quiet achiever anymore. But I just think that if you're thinking about how to develop your career, you really need to find a balance between those three things. I will finish this particular slide with a story that I just heard from one of my partners recently. So my partner went to a talk, and in that talk, there was an ex-Microsoft leader of 35 years. Her name was Katrina Holohan, I believe. And one of the things that she said in her whole career of 35 years, she actually started working a job that nobody would even consider to be a leadership job in the future. She left Microsoft as one of the biggest business leaders at this moment in time. But one of the things, or one of the, I suppose, areas that she felt really, really stuck on was that she was always seeing some of her colleagues getting promoted, and she wasn't. And one of the days she actually went into the office and said, "Look, I saw that there was a promotion on the line. Why wasn't I promoted?" And the management team basically turned around to her and said, "You didn't ask." And that happens quite a lot in our field. We have people that want to be a quiet achiever. They just want to be in the background of things. They just want to be, the guy at the back, the person at the back, working the motions, making sure that everything runs smoothly. But they never really talk about their successes. They don't really big themselves up. And as a result of that, other people that know how to promote themselves quite well end up climbing the ladder longer than them. I've seen people in 10 years in a job. And I've seen people in 2 years in a job, and the people in 2 years in a job have actually climbed the ladder more than people with 10 years of work experience. So I do hope that says something to you. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about some things in my agenda today, which is an introduction to career development. I want to talk about the importance of goal setting. I also want to talk a little bit about industry trends and market insights. This particular one you will see throughout all my slides anyways. And then I really want to just close it off by talking through overcoming professional growth challenges as well. So please do bear with me. So in my next slide, I'm just going to play a little video. It's only about a minute. So please do, I do believe I've shared the sound, so please do indulge me for a couple of seconds and enjoy.
When you hear the term career, what do you think of? Many people envision a 9-to-5 job or someone pursuing a specialized field. These are both valid examples, but when it comes down to it, a career is a reflection of you and your work. People have viewed careers differently over the years. Decades ago, some considered a career to be working with one company until you retired. Later, others viewed it as working your way up through a specific industry. But nowadays, the workforce is changing at a faster pace. A career can include side hustles or working in the gig economy. Many people are also changing jobs more frequently. Because of the way our workforce is evolving, there's no right or wrong way to define what a career is. For example, let's take a look at Jennifer. She's always been a great creative problem solver. Her first job was helping her parents to run their family business. But for her next job, she found herself in event planning. And while working through both of these, she was also a freelance artist and was blogging on a regular basis. Even though these jobs seem fairly unrelated, together they form a career of her own. Simply put, a career is a culmination of the jobs you hold and how you weave them together to form a bigger picture.
Okay, sounds good. So, with that in mind, my other question was, what is career development? The honest answer is it's actually a lot more nuanced than that, right? And because everybody has different variations of aspirations that they have. So I guess for the purposes of this particular story, we're really going to talk a lot about 9 to 5 type jobs and jobs that might be a little bit aligned to office type scenarios, right? But it does go a little bit further than that, and I'll always be happy to talk about that at another time as well. Okay. So, goal settings. Why should we set goals? Please, if you have a quick minute, I'd love to see some action in the comments. If you want to maybe walk me through why you feel like we should set goals. While I'm doing that, I like to pick a guinea pig with me at the moment. I want to see who's paying attention. So, Edima, do I have you on the chat? Can I have a chat with you for a second? I'd like to maybe ask you a couple of questions if that's okay.
Guinea pig, all right, yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, while everybody kind of writes on why they think that we should set some goals, I have some questions, and I want to see if some of these resonate with you. And I'll be quite honest with you as well. Have you ever found yourself saying you want to be married by the time you're 20 something? Was that ever one of the things that you wanted to say? And please, for everybody else in the comments section, please let me know. I want to be married by the time I'm 25. Does that sound like you?
It sounds familiar. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's why
And so why for you, why do you think it was important for you to say something like that?
I think when you set out your goals, right, you hold yourself accountable,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I'm a big believer of vision, right?
Mhm.
And your goal is literally
a path of what your overall vision looks like, either
Nice.
for your career or for your personal life. So, and I'm
Nice.
in sales, right?
Yeah.
Very important to have goals, right? Because
Right.
at the end of the month or even quarter, you have your performance review with your manager and all that. If there are no goals, right, the conversation is just going to be so ambiguous. You wouldn't even know if you have won or you have lost. You wouldn't even know if you're progressing forward or you're
Mm.
progressing. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. And did you ever find yourself saying, I want to own a car when I'm older? I want to own this particular car, or I want to buy a massive house? Or do you, especially in the Dublin housing market, did you ever find yourself saying, setting any of those goals?
To be honest, for the car, I'm not so big on the car because
Nice.
I like a soft life, tax
Yes.
everywhere.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
Have a goal for the house that I want, the area that I want to live in,
Mhm.
and whether it's in Ireland or I mean, get a job outside of Ireland for a couple of years and be back. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Adima. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so sorry to put you on the spot. And for anybody else asking, it's honestly on the spot. I didn't even tell her we're going to do this, so I really appreciate the forward thinking as well. It means a lot. So I'm seeing some comments here. Some people say I'm setting goals because I like ticking things off a list. At a younger age, we didn't call it goals, but it was wishes. With age, we define it as goals. That's interesting. I really love that. Setting goals gives a good roadmap on what to do and keep us on track. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. We set goals to know where we are right now, where we want to go, and it also helps us to stay focused. I think these things are really, really great. So the reason why I said, or rather, why I said all these particular ones here, like I want to get married by the time I'm 20 something, I want to own this car. For some people, I want to, be a soft life babe because I want to get taxes all the time. Maybe it will be limousines in the near future, or I want to buy a massive house. One thing that I wanted to check with you all, and you please, you don't really need to answer this, is how much of this have you actually written down, right? I love the part that somebody says, "Oh, when we were younger, these were just wishes," right? How much of your wishes have you actually written down? And the reason why I'm asking you that is, like, why would you call them goals, or why would you even like? How do you know you need to work towards something? And also, the reason why I really am asking this is, I wanted to get married when I was younger. Like, I wanted to get married when I was like, say, 24, because I'd always seen. I think that was the line of trajectory that my mom got married in as well, and so it was a wish, right? And I'm in my 30s now, right? And one of the things that has made me laugh over time is that I never wrote that down as a goal. It was never something I wanted to work towards, right? And it was a lot more nuanced than that. I know there's like, the idea that you have to fall in love and everything else as well. But one thing that has always resounded loud to me was that I never wrote it down, right? So yeah, something to think about as we go on further in our lists. I'm gonna play another quick video because yeah, it's not like I want to take a water break or anything like that. But yeah, I hope you do enjoy this as well.
I've had a business coach now for the last several years, and it's actually been the most ROI positive thing I've ever done in my business or in my life. When I first started working with Eric, he gave me this questionnaire, which was a sort of assessing where I felt with business and with life. And actually, if you're interested in taking this questionnaire for yourself, I'll put a link down below. I've always had a bit of a weird relationship with goals, where, I was always like focusing on inputs rather than outputs because I want to focus on things that are within my control. Imagine you're trying to throw darts, but now imagine you're completely blindfolded. And Eric's point was that setting goals is just about taking off the blindfold so you can see where the target is. Practically speaking, what does this look like? Well, basically it's a Google Doc. Essentially, the idea is that we're splitting up life into three broad domains: health, wealth, relationships. Just set somewhere between 1 and 3 goals for the quarter. And so, for example, in health, I had these 3 goals: cooking adventurer, acro yoga, and athletic muscular body. And just the fact that I look at this at least once a month means that at the very least, I'm taking steps towards moving in the direction of some of these goals.
I love this video because, and one thing I resonate with the most is that people that set goals, especially maybe without writing them down, or people that don't set goals, that it's like trying to shoot a dart but with a blindfold. And I think for the longest time, I've been a blindfolded darts thrower, right? And I don't know if you feel the same way, right? So if there are any, fellow blindfolded darts thrower, I think this particular set of slides is definitely going to be for you, and it's going to highlight why we need to set goals as part of our career development. You can't realize what you haven't written down, or you can't realize what you actually haven't visualized, to the point where even if you don't write it down, it's mentally written in your brain. Right. So yeah, please do keep that in mind as we go through some of the slides. I have some things that I
I've had a
definitely feel like
business
that
coach
people
now.
Apologies. I feel like there's some things I could definitely show in terms of the stats. So some of these stats I've taken from BI Worldwide in 2024 and MoonCamp in 2025, and then MoonCamp in 2024. So starting from the left, working our way to the right, I want to show you what it looks like when people set their goals, right? So the first part on this says employees who set goals are 14 times more likely to be inspired at work. Employees with goals are 8.1 times more likely to say, I actively look for ways to improve the way that I work. And then it also says only 42% of employees with no goals feel like their ideas are taken seriously, while 80% of employees with goals feel this way, right? And I felt like that was a really, really big disparity. Like if you're part of the 42% that feels like your goals, like you feel like your ideas are not taken seriously. It's because they don't really appear as goals to maybe your employers or maybe your team leads or maybe your hiring managers and so on and so forth as well. Um, Another one says only 16% of employees clearly understand their company's priorities and goals as well. This is for me a very big shocker, especially for people that work in industry. Like if you're part of the 16% that has no idea where your business is going, that honestly is a very big shocker because then you can never align your goals to the company's goals, right? There's as a praying, like I would consider myself somebody that goes to church, right? And one of the prayers that I've always prayed in my personal life was, God, let my goals or let my will align to your will. Why? Because essentially, if you know what God's will is, then you could actually align that will to His, right? And it's the same thing with companies. If you know what the goal of the company is, then you can always try to understand how you can align your goals to their goals. That way, when you're talking about career development, be like, hey, listen, I saw that the company is looking to grow X amount of times this year. This is what I'm thinking about when I think about growth, right? You're having an educated conversation. You're having an educated, I guess, plan with your manager or with somebody that could actually maybe help you realize that goal. Because essentially, the goal you're trying to realize is the goal that the company is trying to realize. And if only 16% only feel this way, that means over 70% of people clearly don't understand what their priorities are and what the priorities of the company are as well. And that also is tied to the fact that you might not be writing your goals as well. And finally, on this slide, research demonstrates that setting a challenging or but an attainable goal can lead up to 90% better employee performance. So I don't know if you're one of the people that feel like you're probably not performing well at work at the moment. I would always say maybe it's worth revisiting whether the goals you've set for yourself are challenging but also attainable. Okay, moving forward. So, some promotional trends that I also wanted to share with you here that I thought might be quite useful for you. Some of us are in the tech industry, some of us are in the finance and consulting industry, some of us are in healthcare. And then, of course, like I said, I know we're not going to dive too deep into this. Some people are actually in the creative industry as well. So, in tech, promotions are quite frequent because there's a lot of growth and there's a skill shortage as well. One thing that you will hear people talking about a lot, even if you haven't, unless you've been hiding under an imaginative rock, is AI is in, right? AI is so in that OpenAI is literally at the stage of getting replaced by another AI. That's how much AI is in right now. I don't know if anybody has heard of DeepSeek, but that's exactly what's coming up. ChatGPT is losing its job. Can you imagine that? It just goes to show what's happening, right? And so if you have those expertise in AI or maybe cloud computing or cybersecurity, those are known as high demand jobs. So I think if you're for anybody that might be building up their career or for anybody that is in that career, it is worth looking out in the market and seeing how you can best develop your career as well, right? Because essentially these jobs are kind of noted to be one of the highest, if not going to be one of the highest in the near future. If you're in finance or consulting, if you're in the big four, for example, promotions are usually often tied to measurable performance metrics. You'll hear a lot of people in the big four talk about billable hours because that's exactly what their bag is. They talk a lot about billable hours. And the more billable hours you have, the likelihood of success you're likely to have as well, either within the company or the clients that you're working with as well. Visibility and the ability to sell projects often leads to faster promotions if you're in finance and consulting, because essentially people want to know what portfolios have you been working with. And this is very similar to people in sales, by the way, and Idima would be able to kind of walk you through this as well. when you have a nice book of business, you know, it showcases if that book of business is booming and it's doing well from say from a hunter's perspective or even from like an account management perspective, like your likelihood of success is actually highly attainable. If your attainment numbers look like you're hitting at 100% or above 100% every single year, the likelihood of you either growing or being recognized externally is quite high. Moving on to healthcare. Promotions are really usually slower here unless your role has a technical element. So I've kind of added some examples. So people that are maybe like data and analytics, or that people that are medical technologists or maybe clinical informatics. I'm not gonna lie to you, these words are mouthfuls. But if your role has a technical element, even if you're in probably something that is considered to be a slow growing environment, this would probably put you at an advantage. So I'd always think about, how to basically upskill and upscale yourself as well in a particular environment that might not be growing as much as it should be. And then finally, in creative industries, be it marketing, be it media, be it music or whatever, self-promotion is critical here. And the reason why we talk about self-promotion here is even though you might be a quiet achiever, so to say, self-promotion is really crucial in the creative industry because you do have to be in the media all the time. Your face has to be there all the time. So usually, this kind of creates creativity and visibility, and they kind of do often go in hand in this case as well, right? So employees who build strong personal brands and networks are more likely to get promoted. I can't stress this enough. The amount of people that I probably speak with that tell me that they don't like to be on LinkedIn because, oh, LinkedIn is so pretentious. Oh, LinkedIn is just not great. It's not a thing that I like to do. Oh, I saw somebody was talking about, they were like, oh my God, I overcame such a hard task the other day, and I really went through the motions with an examiner. This was that, and it's like they're talking about basically passing their driving license, right? And that's how pretentious LinkedIn is, and people don't like that. People don't like how it sounds like people are just basically inflating their numbers or inflating ideas, and yet. This is where people build their brand. This is where people get recognized. This is where some people get interesting impressions and end up becoming somebody that they didn't even realize. Why? Because LinkedIn, whether you think is pretentious or not, works. Why? Because it is the number one acquisition talent system, but also acquisition talent system network that people are quite familiar with. It's funny because nobody feels that way when people are taking pictures of food. Not every food looks like that after you slapped on a couple of filters on it, right? So that's the way that I would invite you to start thinking. How creative can I be when I'm creating my brand? Don't think it's all doom and gloom just because you go in on LinkedIn. Like that's not where you draw the line, right? But yeah, something to think about. Okay, moving forward, and I promise you, I'm nearly there. Can anybody look to the left side? Can anybody tell me what this is? It's titled May 2016. What's that? Can anybody maybe? I know it sounds childish. Okay, I'll admit that. But if anybody can just type it down, let me know what it is. I'd appreciate that. I'm not seeing any comments, guys. You don't know what it is? It's a calendar and a planner. A calendar, a calendar, a calendar, a calendar, a calendar. Guys, this is really important. I think if you want to be successful in your life, in your whole entire life, your calendar needs to be your best friend. Your best friend that you have right now should not be your best friend more than your calendar is. So there's a study by Time Watch 2024. 300 people were surveyed. So I thought that was an interesting participant line. 23% people schedule everything in their calendar. Only 23%. I'm gonna pause for emphasis on some of these because I want it to sink into you because this is how much less people actually use their calendars to plan their lives. And I promise you, the next slide is going to shock you. 37% of people feel that they have things under control at work 5 days a week. Only 37%. A decrease of 5% over the past couple of years. 75% of people say they spend up to 2 hours a day on tasks or meetings that aren't really important to their role. I think a lot of us would really acclimate or maybe align ourselves to this one. The amount of meetings that I have every single day, and I always have to wonder, do I really need to be in this meeting? But 75% of people feel this way. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. What did the same people say? Better time management increases productivity and improves reputation at work. These are the 23% of people that schedule everything in their calendar. And yet they say better time management increases productivity. 75% spend 2 days on meetings that are relevant to their job. Sorry, I just realized that I duplicated that. All right. But people that use time tracking systems say that they are more in control of their time. How many people, if you want to maybe put up your hand, have you ever said you want to do something, but you're like, oh, I actually don't have the time to do it. I don't have the time to do it. Any of you feel like that? Thank you. Appreciate it, Audrey. Very honest. Very, very honest. Ngugi has said that. I'm not gonna lie to you, yeah. That is the biggest lie anybody's ever told themselves. You know why I say that? Right now at work, we have a sprint where we're basically asked to make a certain number of calls. And so I've been back to back all this day. Like I've been back to, when I say back to back, I mean, I probably only had time to go have my lunch and I only had time to go use the toilet today. But one thing I was realizing was that I was able to do a 30-minute conversation, then another 30-minute conversation, then another 30-minute conversation, then another 30-minute conversation. And I had to ask myself, how the hell did I have the time to do that? And the only thing that made sense to me was that I scheduled it in. And I think that when people say they don't have the time, I always say, no, you just didn't make the time. You didn't cultivate it into your diary. You didn't make the time for it, you know? And I'll leave us with this because I think this is the biggest thing that somebody has ever taught me. When you say yes to something, you say no to another thing. So when you say yes to being lazy or yes to being mundane or yes to, not, developing your career, you're basically saying no to other things that you've planned in your life. If you say, yes, I want to do this, right? And you don't realize it, you're saying no to actually creating a plan to work towards it. So I think that might be it. And the last final slide, I think I can talk about, I know I'm getting short on time there. In terms of how you can go about overcoming professional growth challenges, my biggest thing is, first of all, you have to put your head down and then be visible. Be a quiet achiever and then be a self-promoter. You have to upskill in your field. Let your company's business be your business. I'm telling you right now, if you were to go to any hiring manager and be like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted to check, what's the company thinking of in the next couple of months?" Watch how some of the managers would actually light up and be like, "Oh yeah, like what have you been thinking about? Like, have you been thinking about maybe jumping on this meeting? Have you been thinking about jumping on this project? I promise you right now, go do it tomorrow." You'll start seeing that, oh yeah, this person is trying to put themselves out there, but nobody wants to put themselves out there because they're like, oh yeah, like that just means I have to do more work, and it's like I don't want to navigate that. Do you know what I mean? So think about that. Sometimes you might not be able to, develop in your career. So it might be time for a career change. Maybe you consider thinking about maybe pivoting to the side in order to pivot up as well. And of course, we've been talking about this, but please do measure your success and set the right goals and expectation for yourself as well. I've put this next part down because I think it's important. You do have to be political. I kid you not. I think workplace politics is real, and I think you need to be political in the way you have a conversation. When I was younger, I used to speak my mind at work. I still do it now, but I do it politically. So please find a way to be political. Workplace relationships are really, really well. If you're the type of person that likes to warm your rice and then go and sit on your own, you're not developing workplace relationships. You're disassociating yourself from the workplace environment. You're disassociating yourself from people that could potentially help you in the future. If you're the type of person that doesn't go to, after work parties because, oh, all they ever do is go and drink. All they ever do is this. I don't do this. Nobody's asking you to go and drink after work, but try and just be around people that you work with. I promise you, that workplace relationship that you cultivate might benefit you in the near future. And the last 2 points, adapt to the changes, put in the work. And I think that would help you. Of course, I've listened to the GNX album, so I had to put it out there for you. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Of course, I'll wait for some questions in the Q&A. If I can help you, I'd love to help you. If I can't, I'm so sorry, but hopefully we'll be able to talk at another time. Take it easy.
Thank you, Innocent. Oh, that was very insightful. Thank you. And so we just go on to Yemi, who is going to basically Yemi is a financial expert who will be sharing smart money, smart moves, smart strategies that would help us in our financial career, our financial growth. So, Yemi, you have the floor now. Okay.
Thanks, thanks, Zainab. Oops, I just want to make sure, can everybody hear me and can everybody see my screen? Just confirming. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. That was a great presentation by Innocent. Really good. Took a few tips. Um, just as Ines said, my name is Yemi Ajamale. I lead a team in Bank of Ireland. So what we do is we give assurance over strategy, technology, and change related projects. Okay. So that's my professional background. Um, I am going to be talking to you guys about navigating investing and personal finance. Um, I've seen this topic approached from the point of view of like telling people to do things that they already know they should do. So I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to take a slightly different angle in trying to convince you about why taking your investing and personal finance journey seriously is a no-brainer. And my measure of success would be if I've inspired you to take action. All right. I only have 15 minutes, so I might talk a bit fast. I apologize, but there is a Q&A session at the end, and I would say just save your questions there. Okay. All right. So let's get started. All right. I'm going to start by telling us a story. Okay. It's a story of a guy called Ronald James Reed. All right. This is a true story. Okay. He was a janitor for his entire career, and when he died, they discovered that he had over $8 million in his property portfolio, in his investing portfolio. Okay, his family were shocked, right? Because again, he was a janitor, he lived a frugal lifestyle, right? The important thing to know about Mr. Ronald was that he had no college degree, no training, no background, no experience, nothing, right? He achieved this by investing consistently over a very long period of time. In comparison, we're going to talk about a man called Richard Foscone. All right. Again, this is a true story. He was a Harvard MBA exec. Okay. He was a finance exec at Merrill Lynch, which is an investment bank. Okay. So he was educated for this. Okay. This is a picture of just one of the properties that he owned. All right. He lived a very extravagant lifestyle. Okay. We're talking investment banking pre 2008 crisis. All right. It was a good time. It was popping. Champagne was everywhere. Okay. Now, the important thing to learn here is in 2008, he filed for bankruptcy. And if you look at the bankruptcy documents, you found that he had over $34 million in liabilities versus assets. I don't even understand how that happens, but yes. The other thing was, if you look at his bankruptcy documents, it actually contained what we call current liabilities. Okay, so these are invoices that he was still paying. And one of the invoices was for a wine cellar to be built in one of these properties that was worth $65,000. Okay, this is while he was declaring bankruptcy. He also had current invoices of paying staff $10,000 a month. Okay, and this was in his bankruptcy document. So why am I telling you this story? Number one, investing is one of the few fields where someone who has no degree, no training, no connections can massively outperform somebody who does, right? You wouldn't see that in medicine. You wouldn't see that in law, all right? You wouldn't see somebody come off the street, enter a law case and win. Do you understand? You wouldn't see somebody who hasn't trained in medicine come and do a surgery, okay? Personal finance and investing is one of the areas you can do that. And the reason is because investing has little to do with education, salary, connections. It is purely about behavior. All right. Over the next few slides, I'm going to try to convince you about why you should invest, number one, how you should invest, number two, and I'm going to finish by talking about some personal finance concepts, okay? All right. So next slide is a bit busy, but stick with me. I think we should be able to land it. All right. So the first slide over here on the left, okay, this is property prices in Ireland over the last few years. Okay, this data is taken from the CSO, all right, the Central Statistics Office, and it is based on stamp duty returns, so it's pretty accurate, right? Some of you will find it amazing that in the 1970s you could actually buy a property in Ireland for 14,000 euros. Okay, and you can see the trend over time to the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, and now the average house price in Dublin is 200. In Ireland is 218,000. Okay, let's look at rent prices. So just going down here. Okay, the blue line is Dublin. Okay, so these are property prices in Dublin, and you can see that it's going one way. Okay, it's going up over time. So these are property prices outside of Dublin. So this is like Maynooth, Enfield, those kind of places, just outside of Dublin, that is also going higher. Okay, and then outside of Dublin is also higher as well. So it doesn't matter where in Ireland, prices are going up over time, right? This is the stock market. So this is called the S&P 500. It's an index. It's made up of the 500 most valuable companies in America. Okay, and you can buy a piece of it by buying this index, and you can see the price of the index is going one direction over time, right? Food prices, same thing. Okay, when I first got to Ireland, you could buy a Snicker bar for 50 cents. It was an amazing time. Okay, I used to gather coins, and I'll go out and I'd have a feast. Okay, some of you were here when chicken fillet rolls in university used to be €2. Okay, it was a great time. Okay, but today you can see that that trend is not happening. Okay, so now this this is happening slowly over time. You might not feel it, right? Because it's not happening quickly, but it is happening. And this is what we call inflation. Okay, prices rising over time. Now, I want you to flip perspectives for a moment, right? Imagine your parents bought property in the 1970s and it's worth 380,000 $280,000 now, okay? What is happening there is inflation is still happening, but you are benefiting from it, right? Imagine you owned stock in a company who used to sell fish for 90 cents per kilo. They're selling the same fish for 20 euros a kilo. So their profitability is going up. And as a result, their stock is going up. Okay. So you are gaining from inflation. Okay. If you own property, again, it doesn't matter where in Ireland. If you just own something and you can see rent prices are going up over time. So you're benefiting from inflation when you own assets, right? There's a popular saying that politicians say. Okay, they say inflation is a tax on the poor. Inflation is a tax on the poor, and you have a lot of people who earn a lot of money, right? They earn six figures, and they hear that slogan and they say, "Yeah, inflation is a tax on the poor," but they don't understand that the definition of poor is someone who doesn't own assets. Okay, doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter how much salary you're getting. If you're not owning assets, you are being penalized, right? Now, the other thing that you should understand is that this trend of inflation, prices going up over time, it's actually not happening by accident. Okay, it is it is it is a feature. It is not a bug. It is designed for our economy to work. There are public and private forces that are working together to make this happen, right? So let's talk about the public forces first. Um, the next slide I'm going to go to, it's a bit busy. Okay, I usually don't have slides this busy, but I just don't have time to take you to the central bank's website. So that's what I've done. All right. Again, stick with me. It's a bit complex, but we're going to land this. We're going to land this point. All right. Okay. So this is a screenshot from the US Fed. Okay, this is the central bank of the US, and this is a screenshot from the European Central Bank. And you can see here that they're telling you that the job of the US Fed is maximum employment and price stability. Okay, I can talk to you about the relationship between both, but that's for another day. Today, we're going to talk about price stability. So they are telling you that it is our job to do this price stability. Now, look at how they define price stability. This is the US. The chairman, Powell, he's saying we will seek to achieve 2% inflation over time. Okay? This is Europe. The European Central Bank, they're saying we will aim to have 2% inflation over time. If you look back, what did I tell you inflation was? This is inflation. Inflation is prices going up over time. Okay? The central bank is not saying we want to get rid of inflation. Okay? They're saying we want it to happen. We just want it to happen slowly over time. Right? And because it is their job to make sure this happens, if something happens that threatens this from happening, that threatens prices from going up, the government will act because it is their job to act. Okay? When you hear a country's GDP is rising, it means asset prices are rising. Okay? If any one of us thought that if I buy a house today, that house is going to be cheaper 5 years from now, the economy would collapse. Okay, so it is their job. So, what is an example of a time when the government intervened? You guys remember COVID 2020, right? Businesses had to close down, everybody had to stay at home. So what did the government do? I don't know if you guys remember, people were sitting at home getting money to do nothing. And we were thinking, oh man, the government is so nice. Why would they do that? Like businesses are sitting at home doing nothing. Why is the government doing that? They're doing that because of this. This is a chart of house prices, and the FTSE 100 is made up of the 100 most valuable companies in the world. Prices dip, and the government intervenes. The government intervenes. The government intervenes. Okay, they're keeping prices steady, right? Now, I've spoken to you about the public mandate that makes inflation happen. What is it on the private side that is pushing inflation? Some of the forces that contribute to this would be things like wage cost wage increase. So all of us here, we are going to our employers every 2 to 3 years. We're saying, "Yo, I need more money. You need to increase my salary, right?" Um, you have speculators, investors. Investors want returns, so governments will try to engineer the economy to attract investors, right? Um, so anyway, the idea is that we actually need prices to go up over time. So the final point I want to make is this: inflation is a feature, right? And sorry, I'm just going to quickly go to my summary. And in order to summarize about why you should invest, reason number one, inflation is a tax on the poor. Okay? We want to be on the right side of that course. We want to own assets that are going up over time. Reason number two, even if you don't care about investing, okay, you just want to be the best doctor in the world. You want to be the best lawyer in the world. You don't care about investing. It doesn't matter whether you care or not. Like inflation will impact you. Number three, I showed you guys how the government intervenes when prices are dropping. They do that by expanding the money supply. It is taking. I want to propose to you that it is taking more and more money to buy the same house. Okay, maybe the house is not what is getting more expensive. Maybe it is more money chasing the same house. So if somebody says to you that I've been saving money for the last 10 years, okay, you should be terrified by anybody who says things like that because the government is expanding that money supply because inflation is a feature, not a bug. Okay, so based on this slide, I hope I've been able to convince you at least one reason why you should invest. All right. Very quickly, I'm going to talk about how you should invest. Okay. So again, busy slide, but we're going to land it. We're going to talk through it. Okay. So a study was done in the UK, and it turns out that I think it was like over 75% of all millionaires in the UK are over the age of 65. Okay, and you can see a breakdown of the average wealth according to age groups. It's actually not close. Okay, 55 and above, the wealth disparity between that age bracket and junior and younger cohorts is wide. And I was wondering what is the reason. And if I told you guys right now that the number one reason for this disparity is pensions. Okay, pensions. Investing is not complex. It's pensions. I was in a taxi driver. I was in a taxi in Belfast the other day, and I was just chatting to the driver, and he was telling me how he was getting ready for his pension to arrive next year, and he was just doing the taxi just to get out the house, just to not drive his wife insane, as they say, because he's sitting at home not doing anything, just waiting for his pension to drop. And I asked him like, how much are you expecting from your pension? And he looked at me and he said he's expecting £650,000. No, this guy has never earned over £60,000 in his entire career. In his entire career. So again, I hope I can convince you that investing is not about how much you earn. Okay? Why are pensions so powerful? It's powerful because of this. You are giving your money to an investor every single month for 30 years. Okay? They are investing your money every month for 30 to 35 years. That is how investing works. That is how you build wealth. And it is difficult, okay, because there are no shortcuts here, right? The second reason why there are more millionaires over the age of 55 than below is property, okay? And you can see that chart here. So the green line is total wealth, but this line here is pensions. But next to it is property. Most people would think that the wealth of most millionaires will be made up of financial wealth, but look how low financial wealth is. Okay, financial wealth is very low. It's not common. Okay, and now why is property making people that are over the age of 50 to 65 millionaires? It's the same concept. Okay, they've taken a loan to get an asset, and they've paid for that asset every single month for 30 to 35 years. Okay, I'm going to go through some more slides to hammer this point about how you should invest. Right, so stick with me here. I'm going to land another point. So this is a chart. Okay, this is based on a study that was done. So this is pure research. Again, I'm not advocating for the S&P 500 or any investment vehicles because historic performance is not an indication of future performance. But this is data, and we can make decisions of data, right? This is a study of the stock market over the last 10 years. Okay, if you had put $10,000, okay, in 2003 into the stock market, if you left it and did nothing, you just left it alone, 10 years from now, that $10,000 will be worth 65,000. Okay. And that is an average compound of 10% a year, right? Remember at the start of my talk, and I told you that if somebody told you I've been saving money in my bank account for the last 10 years, remember I told you that you should be horrified? You should be terrified because this is what they're losing out. There's an opportunity cost to not investing. Now, I'm sure we all know people who are like, man, I bought Apple stock for like $10 and I sold it for $100, right? They're telling you how they're making good short-term money. And like, look, most of those people don't know anything, and I'll tell you why. If your money was not in the stock market for any of these days in 10 years, 10 days in 10 years, October 13, 2008, October 20, 2008, if your money was not in the stock market on any of these 10 days, your return goes from 64,000 to 30,000. That is less than half. Okay? Let me say that again. If your money was not in the stock market for 10 days out of 10 years, your return goes from 10% a year to 4% a year. That's a massive drop. Okay? If you missed the best performing 30 days in the stock market, you would actually be losing money. And that is what happens to most people who buy and sell. The guys that are telling you, I bought Apple stock here, I sold it here, I bought Bitcoin for 100, da, 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 most of them lose money over time because they cannot predict what these days are. Okay? I'm going to take you to another chart that is going to make this the exact same point, right? This is a chart that is studying investment data over the last 100 years. Okay? And the data is simple. Positive correlations are directly tied to how long you've held an investment. And the reason is simple: the longer you hold, the more positive days you will experience. The shorter you hold, the more chances of experiencing negative days than positive days. Okay, so over one day, if you invest for just one day, you have a 50% chance of losing your money. Okay, and I'm going to go back a bit, but you can actually see that trend happening. Just one second, I'm going back a bit. You can see that trend happening here, right? Like the stock market goes down in the short term, but in the long term, it's going in one direction. And that is what you mean. It's like over the short term, you might not make good returns, but over the long term, you will. And here's a chart that actually demonstrates that. So this is a chart of the price of Bitcoin every year on Christmas Day. You can do this with the top 10 stocks. You can do this with the S&P. And the point that you're making here is that if you bought this asset and you hold it for 5 years, your chances of being more profitable than before is 80%. So let's just do that math, all right? In 2017, you bought Bitcoin, the price was 14,000. Okay. By year two, it was 4,000. And you're thinking I've lost some money. But if you waited 5 years, one, two, three, four, five, okay, it was 51,000. All right. So again, I'm not endorsing any assets, but you can do this exercise. For most strong assets, if you do this math, you hold them for at least a minimum of 5 years, you're 80% more likely to be profitable over time. Okay. Now, this is the OG. Okay. This is Warren Buffett, right? This guy is the investing OG. He started investing at the age of 14 years old. And you can see that 90% of his wealth happened after the age of 65. This is the power of compounding. Okay, you can only get these returns if you invest over a long period of time. Okay, Warren Buffett had a partner. I actually don't remember his name, but they all held shares together in Berkshire Hathaway. And during the 2008 crisis, this guy had a lot of debt, and he had to sell his investments to pay off, and he missed out on all of this. Okay, to summarize, why should you invest? Because we want to be on the right side of inflation. Okay, inflation is a tax on the poor, right? We want to own assets because poor in that sentence means people who don't own assets. Number two, if you're just focused on being the best doctor, the best lawyer, you don't care about you don't care about investing, inflation will impact you. Number three, the money supply is expanding, and inflation is a feature, so it doesn't make sense to put your savings in cash. You should invest. How should you invest? Consistently over a long period of time. Now, I promise I'm about to go to my last slide, and just very quickly, I'm going to talk to you about some timeless advice when it comes to personal finance. Okay, this advice comes from a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. This book was written in 1926. Okay, this book was written before the stock market was even existed. Okay, so let's look at the wisdom that is coming out from this book. So number one, seven cures for a lean purse. Number one, for every 10 coins thou placest within thy purse, take out for use but nine. Okay, they're saying save a minimum of 10% of your income. Okay, if this if this text sounds like the Bible, the book is actually written in this way. Okay, this book is old. All right, so number two, what each of us calls our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we protest. All right, your expenses will always match your income on default. The only way to avoid that is if you intentionally suppress. You have to suppress your expenses deliberately, intentionally. Okay, this is people in 1926, and they're telling you the exact same thing. They're dealing with the same problems you have. Okay, I think I saw a stat. It was like one in three people who earn over 100K are living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, it doesn't get easier if you earn more money. Okay, your expenses will always rise to your income unless you protest. Number three, make thy gold multiply. Okay, learn to make your treasure work for you. Make it your slave. Make its children and its children your slave. The reason why this is very interesting is because, again, this advice was before the stock market, and he's telling you to compound your returns. Okay, number four, be cautious of get rich quick schemes. Study carefully before departing with thy treasure. Each assurance that it may be safely reclaimed, be not misled by thine own romantic desires to make wealth quickly. Okay? I just told you, investing is a long term game. Okay? The people that I see that get hurt are the people that are trying to make money quickly. Okay? Number five, make thy dwelling a profitable investment. I recommend that every man owns the house that shelters him. Okay? Property is always a good way to go. Number six, ensure yourself a future income. Therefore, I do say to you that it behooves a man to make preparations for a suitable income in the days to come where he is no longer young. This book was written in 1926. There was no pensions then. Okay? And finally, increase your ability to earn. Okay? Um, I'm sure that I've definitely overstayed my welcome, but I hope I've been able to convince you that look, invest in a personal finance. It's not complex. It's not about being super intelligent. Like it's not about being super educated. Super like they're just simple things that you can do to set yourself up for future success. And with that being said, I'm going to pass on back to the team. So thank you guys. If there's any questions, we'll see them in the Q&A. So cheers.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot. In my mind, I was thinking, wow, King James is spitting today. This is crazy. Nah, this is really interesting. Thank you so much, Yemi. Really informative. I definitely took a lot. I'm somebody that's always shying away from investing, but yeah, this really means a lot. Thank you so much. Okay, so the next order of business, I'd like to welcome Audrey Osu Giamera. So, for anybody that doesn't know who Audrey is, she's amazing, first of all, to start off there. Okay. So, Audrey is a Guinean and junior business analyst at the Bank of Ireland. Okay. Audrey moved to Ireland to study in 2021 and graduated from UCD Smurfit in 2022 with a master's degree in international business. After graduating, she joined the Irish Cancer Society as a fundraising assistant. Thanks to Bank of Ireland and APNI accelerator program, Audrey has successfully transitioned from fundraising to a career in change and transformation within the financial services sector, where she is now receiving mentorship and support to develop as a business analyst. Audrey, very welcome. Thank you so much for, I suppose, for gracing us with your presence.
All right. Thank you so much, Innocent. And thank you to everyone who has taken the time to be with us today. Like Innocent said, my name is Audrey. My full name is actually Audrey Sewa Owusu Jamra. And like he said, I am a Ghanaian and I moved to Ireland in 2021 to study. I did my master's in international business at UCD and I graduated in 2022. Now, my story today will mainly center on how APNI's community resources can help you to build a network that allows you to achieve your objectives. That could be landing your first job or pivoting careers or whatever it is. In my case, it was pivoting careers, and APNI's community resources played a huge part in me making that transition from fundraising to business analysis within the Bank of Ireland. Okay, so I think I'll go back to the beginning. Well, not the exact beginning when I was born, but like I'll go back to 2022 when I graduated from UCD. And I think my story resonates with a lot of graduates as well. So after graduating from UCD in 2022, after working so hard in school and looking forward to what the future had for me, I came out of school and realized that I was in a new country by myself. I didn't have any family here and I didn't have a professional network. So I didn't really know who to turn to for advice and direction and guidance when it came to my career. Um, Fortunately for me, I met Edima at church and she told me about APNI. And I became a member of the APNI community after that. And I started attending the career day events that APNI has every year in October. Now, my favorite part of the APNI Career Day event is usually the panel discussion that they have because I like to listen to other people, hear their stories, and I'm a big fan of getting advice from people. So I attended one APNI Career Day event in working in finance. I was working in fundraising at the Irish Cancer Society. So I had no business being over there, but I was very curious. I wanted to know what people in finance talk about when they meet at events like this. So I decided to go anywhere and just go and listen and find out what they talk about. And to my surprise, when I got there, I realized they were talking about normal people stuff. They were talking about, how to give your best at work, how to conduct yourself at work. And it was a conversation that impacted me so deeply that I kept the names of the panelists in mind. I think it was Christine Simiyu and Augustine Asande. I will never forget them. But I just kept them mind and I followed them on LinkedIn as you naturally do. Now, I didn't get the chance to interact with them because you know how some of these events can be. Everybody flocks to go and speak to the panelists because everybody wants to introduce themselves. So I didn't get a chance to speak to them. But a few months afterwards, I came across Christine on the train on my way to work, and I immediately went over to her and introduced myself. I told her that I sat in the finance panel discussion, and I really liked the insights that she shared and her personal story. And fortunately for me, she was a very sweet and very down to earth person. So we built a connection right there. And then after that, I would just check up on her, just maybe send her a message just to say hello, or sometimes just meet her for lunch just to get to know her a little bit better and to find out what she does at the bank and also to get her advice because I told her that even though I was working in fundraising, deep down, I wanted to go back to a role that was in line with my background in business. And so she gave me advice on how to do that and told me about the upcoming APNI partnership with Bank of Ireland and the career accelerator that they were planning. So that mentorship relationship evolved. And when the career accelerator program was announced, I prepared my application. Now, I'll be honest with you, I almost didn't apply because because during the launch call, I was, listening to some of the comments from some of the other attendees, and people were talking about how they had studied artificial intelligence and how they had experience working in artificial intelligence. And I was sitting there thinking, God, I work in fundraising. I don't have that much experience. Should I even consider putting my application in? But fortunately, I had good friends who who encouraged me to apply anyway because I had nothing to lose. And that was where my mentor, Christine, was also very helpful. She encouraged me to apply anyway. So I applied, I got the role, and I got into Bank of Ireland. And then I was faced with a new challenge. This time I had 4 months because the internship was for 4 months. So I had 4 months to make enough of an impression that will allow me to land a permanent role within the bank. And so I doubled down on strengthening those mentorship relationships and expanding my network. APNI and Bank of Ireland were very good in the sense that when I joined the bank, they gave me a buddy, or they paired me up with someone who had been in the bank for a long time. Her name was Sophia. And so, again, just being a normal person, having normal conversations, being interested in other people's lives, I was able to build a meaningful relationship with not only Sophia, but my line manager at the time, and constantly going to them asking for guidance and advice. And I think another thing that they did for me, or another thing that they helped me do, which also ties into what Innocent said earlier, was setting goals. So, like I said, I had 4 months in the internship. 4 months is not a lot of time to do a whole lot. But then I sat down with my manager, Elaine, based on the guidance and feedback from my mentors, and we set realistic, achievable, and impactful goals for me for that internship. And I worked towards those goals. And because of that, I became more visible within my team. And my manager and her manager started to introduce me to other people in the bank because I was making impact. I was making an impression. I was hitting the targets. I could see what I was, working towards. And they could also see that I was actually working towards something. So then it gave me more visibility within the bank. And lo and behold, a project was starting up within the bank. My CV landed on the desk of the project manager who had heard so much about me because of, me applying myself, taking the advice and guidance from my mentors, working towards those goals. And now I'm currently a business analyst in a project team within Bank of Ireland, receiving consistent mentorship from Sophia, Elaine, Christine, and working towards, building or developing my career as a business analyst. So that is my story, and hopefully that gives insights on how you can leverage mentorship to achieve your career goals. I think the main things that I would say is when it comes to mentorship, I would say be authentic, like be a human being. I know it sounds like a strange thing to say, but sometimes I feel like the best way to build a relationship is to be truly authentic and interested in the actual person, not just, trying to. Sometimes you can see that someone is being pretentious. The person is just trying to, I don't know, like in Ghana, we'll say ahosh. The person is trying to ahosh you. But I say be genuinely interested in the person you're trying to build a mentorship relationship with. Sometimes it might just be a case of just saying hello or wishing the person happy holidays or just meeting for coffee and just having a simple conversation, but just be interested in building meaningful relationships and always, always, always be open to advice. And like Innocent said, if you are in a short-term role or even if you're in a long-term role, I humbly and yeah, I humbly advise that you should try to set targets so that you know whether you are making progress, you know whether you are heading in the right direction, whether you are heading in the same direction as the company. Because I think another thing that I realized is that you can be working hard, but you can be doing work that doesn't really matter. But what you want to be doing is doing hard work that matters to your manager and to the company as a whole. So, yeah, I'll just keep it short and sweet. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. But thank you all so much for your time. And yeah, that's it.
Great story, Audrey. Congratulations. And I think it's very encouraging for us, the APNI team, um, to see success like yourself. It makes the hard work worth it. We joke about APNI being our 5 to 9. So we're very proud of the work that you put in, and I think for us, it's great to see that you utilize the resources that we put out there for our community. Because then what's the point of it, right? All the hard work from our team if people are not utilizing it. So I think we'll go straight into Q&A. There are a couple of questions already in the chat. Some get towards Innocent and some for Yemi. So guys, use the chat to leave your questions and we'll try and take them as soon as we'll try and take as much as possible. So Innocent, I don't know, can you come back on the call, and Yemi as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you guys. So,
Yeah.
there's a question to you about when you say politics. Can you explain what that means? I think it's one of the slide when you were talking about you have to be political in like your conversation and involvement in the company.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like sometimes, and I agree with Audrey. I think being your authentic self is really, really good. It's useful, right? And I think that if you can showcase who you are authentically, that's great, right? But there is such a thing as business language, right? And for me, that is what I would call political, because obviously that's not how we talk on a day-to-day basis, right? And I think that if you can really like apply the lingo, like the business lingo, that will really, really like help set you apart, because it's not that people don't know what you're saying when you're using like your normal language, so to say, but there is a way that business language, goes as far as possible. There's a way that it hits in the business section, or there's a way it hits in corporate, that you being your authentic self might come off as being blunt, might come off as being, it could be like people thinking that you're being rude. It could be, people thinking that you're not really saying what they think they're hearing, whereas people understand what business jargon is. So I would say try and understand what that looks like. That's a good one. That's a nice statement, code switching. But what I would ever say, corporate code switching, right? Because we know what code switching is in the real terms. But yeah, that's I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Innocent. That was a really good answer. So next question is to you, Yemi. How do you invest for compounding? And the system is new in the US, but I haven't heard of an institution offering this investment model.
You guys can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, so compounding is definitely not it's not restricted to the US. Thank God. So compounding is I remember that there was a story and they asked somebody to pick between having having a penny, where the penny doubles every day, versus taking $1 million now, right? And the idea is that the penny that's doubling every day will be, I can't remember the math, but it was a lot more than a million. So compounding just means in the stock market, allowing your money to grow over time. So you're saving and you're adding to it. You're saving and you're adding to it. So maybe if you looked at Warren Buffett's chart, so initially he only had 5K, and 100% of 5K is just 10K. 100% of 10K, the more the number goes, the more that it doubles. And as well as your money doubling, the if you're in the S&P, you're also getting dividends. You're also putting in your own money, and if you can do that consistently for a long period of time, and compounding is working for you, it's a recipe for success. So compounding just means saving consistently for a very long period of time, preferably in a vehicle that is also um, appreciating with returns or interest. So yeah, that's just what compounding means, all right?
Okay, that's a really good explanation, Yemi. I think it's like I said, it's investment over time, right?
Yes.
The follow-up question I had from someone else was, what are the investment platforms that I suppose, okay, which investment platforms are best in Ireland, right? I think you probably want to put a disclaimer there, right?
Yeah, I'll put a disclaimer. So I mean, they're all good, you know. I think you have your eToros, the Giro, Trade 212. Most platforms are pretty good. Personally, I would use eToro. I know that my company uses the Giro as well. Um, but yeah, they're all pretty good, to be honest. I think it's just down to personal preference in terms of layouts. But at the end of the day, the only thing I would discourage is there's a direct correlation between the amount of time spent on an investment platform and um, and how much money people lose over time. Okay,
Mm,
the people who make the most returns are people who you come in, you invest, and you go away. Okay, you're not meant to spend time on the platform. So I do know a lot of these newer platforms are, it's a lot of colors. They're trying to get you to stay on and do more things. So just try to stay away from that.
uh, that's a good advice, right? Because when you look at it, you seem like, oh my gosh, I'm so rich. What can I do? So maybe just forget about it. Just think of it as money you put somewhere that is non-existent for now.
Yeah.
Right. Very good answer, Yemi. Thanks so much. So I have two questions for Innocent, but I'm gonna go to Audrey first, right? Because there's a question here for you, Audrey. So the comment says, thanks so much, Audrey, for sharing your story. Could you please speak more about pivoting into the role of BA, I suppose that's business analyst. I have been trying to change into the role of BA from sales, but it hasn't been successful. Is it a matter of not highlighting skills and experience in my CV when not being able to directly be in contact with a hiring manager or recruiter? Maybe Innocent can add to this topic from the perspective of a recruiter.
Okay. So, all right, I think I'm going to share the advice or counsel that I was given. Like I mentioned, I'm also receiving mentorship in the bank to help me settle into my new role as a business analyst. But from the guidance that I was given, it's not just about writing things on your CV. Okay, so for BA roles, right? A key part of BA roles or pivoting to a BA role is having the certification. So if you haven't undergone any training on like any BA training, any business analyst training, I highly recommend you try to do some of the BA training. There are different organizations in Ireland that do it. I know of ILX, I know of the Project Management Institute Ireland. And so you can go through their websites to see if they have any upcoming trainings. So the training is definitely a big part. Then once you have the training, the next thing is to get projects or projects that you can work on to build your portfolio. So for me, even though I wasn't working in Bank of Ireland, even within my role at the Irish Cancer Society, I was looking for opportunities to apply some of the things that I had learned, trying to act like a business analyst within the Irish Cancer Society. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for opportunities within my work at the Irish Cancer Society to try and act like a business analyst. So I was working in fundraising at the time, and I realized that we had a problem with the phone. So when people would call, we would take minutes and minutes and minutes trying to look for the relevant information for them. So I switched into business analyst mindset over there, just based on the training that I had received. And I started to apply what I had learned from my training. And I created a team, like a team site, because we were using Microsoft SharePoint. So I created a team site on Microsoft that had all the relevant, fundraising information in that one place. So it's just looking for opportunities within your current role to apply your business analyst learnings. And then through that, you can build a portfolio for yourself. I think Innocent might have some more to share, but I'll definitely say training is an important part because a lot of them look for training, and then trying to look for opportunities within your current role or outside of your current role to try and put into practice some of the things that you learn so you can build your portfolio and use that to support your applications or your job applications. Yeah.
Yeah, so my mantra, thank you, Audrey. You actually said a lot of the things I was gonna say. My mantra is if you are without, look within. So like if you that would be my first thing. See if there's any ways to pivot internally. See if there's people you can speak with. See if there's a way you can, you know, you know, what's the word? If there's a way you can have a conversation that's kind of like, hey, I've been thinking about, a BA here, a role here. I don't know if there's any opportunities that might be coming up. It's about understanding, even speaking to a recruiter internally as well. Just be like, hey, look, I'm not looking for a move right now. I'm really happy in sales, but I'm just wondering who I might be able to speak with. Is there a hiring manager I can speak with regards to some BA roles? And just even say something like, it's not something I'm thinking of at the moment, but I was wondering if I wanted to have that kind of conversation, who would I speak with? You know what I mean? And it's pivot, it's kind of basically highlighting it in that way. The other thing I will say is if you are looking externally already, which I'm sure you are, I would really question the volume by which you're doing it. Like how many applications are you making a week on it? How many conversations are you having with external recruiters on it? Right. Sometimes when you're on LinkedIn, it does actually tell you who the recruiter is. Like, do you know who works in the environments that you're looking in? Right. What is the volume of the things you're doing? I hear a lot of people tell me, I've applied so many times, I've had so many rejections, and it's like, yeah, you haven't done enough until it's enough, right? If I tell you how much a salesperson makes in terms of phone calls every day, some of you guys will run away. Some sales do 30 to 40 calls a day trying to close one business, and they won't even close it that day, right? So it's just to show you. And if you're probably making like one or two applications a day and you're saying, I'm getting so many rejections and you're getting deterred, and I understand it, I empathize with that quite a lot. I've been in positions like that as well. I would say increase your volume, be creative on how you actually reach out to recruiters, be creative on how you reach out to managers as well. And use the AI systems that can support you if you can. Like use everything that can, like I always prompt, hey, I'm looking for X and Y Z job. I see the job is in this particular company. How do I like what kind of message can I write to basically appeal to the hiring manager that I'm looking at, and just highlight your interest there and continue to do that. If it's working, then it's great. If you're getting engagement from some of the recruiters, even if they say, sorry, we're not looking at your profile right now, at least you can understand that they're looking at you, right? Then you know that it was a good message because it was engaging. There's so many more nuances to that, and I'd love to explore that further with you outside of this. But I think if you're starting from there, then you should probably have enough.
Yeah, thanks so much, Innocent. Those are good answers. Just we have a couple of questions, and I know that our time is fast well spent for today. So I'm gonna kind of summarize the questions in the chat for you, right? So there's a third year college student on work placement and is wondering if you have any advice in terms of setting goals and standing out. Then there's an MBA student as well who would be interested in terms of like who is interested in knowing what profitable roles they should aspire for or aspire to in Ireland and the EU countries. That's
Okay.
one question. I hope you remember. So
I
the second
don't.
one is, how can you apply for jobs with little experience when it seems all recruiters are looking for more experiences and there seem to be not a lot of junior roles available? So, and again, so there are questions about sponsorship visas, like visa sponsorship, which from that question, I'm not sure if you can answer that one.
Yeah, the visa sponsorship is ridiculously nuanced because like we're going into different territories. My interest in there would be like how technical is what you studied? Do you know what I mean? How technical is the role you're trying to get into? Because notably there are companies that are looking to hire people without a visa and they can sponsor it if the role is technical enough, right? So like if you're in marketing, for example, or you're looking to do marketing and you're looking for sponsorship, it might be a little bit difficult, right? So you might need to upskill on a more technical level. One thing I always refer to for anybody that is in a visa situation is look up the roles that Ireland actually does sponsor from a visa perspective and see if there's any, I don't know, pivot or if there's any line of work that you're already doing and seeing if there's any opportunities that way. But again, it's way too nuanced for me to even talk about. So let me focus on what this person said. Said I'm currently in my third year of college on a work placement. I was wondering if you have any advice for me in terms of setting goals and standing out. The first thing I'll always say like is if you are in the work placement already, like you're not your main goals when you're doing things like this, especially when in university, you should just be finding ways to effectively network within your environment. For example, I had a girl that basically got an internship with a company I was working with, and that was HubSpot. And honestly, like it was a short stint. Everybody knew it was a short stint, right? And she made the best of it. She spoke to literally everybody in that company. Like, well, not literally, but she spoke to the people that would have been respective at that time. Whenever there was an opportunity for her to pick up a hand and do something, she did it. She was like, hey, is there any opportunities that would help me upskill? I'm an intern here. Is there anything that I can do in order to upskill myself? At some point, she had the opportunity to actually into like we do these mock interviews sometimes when we're doing like an Ask Me Anything kind of like webinar within the company. She had the opportunity to host an interview like a VP of a particular department, like a vice president of a particular department, and people knew who she was, even though she was an intern. Or like, who is this person? Eventually, she landed a job not with Hub with HubSpot, which was a company where I was working with, but she did land another job with another company that I've worked in the past as well. Why? Because she was upskilling herself. She was learning everything she needed to learn. She put everything in her CV in terms of what she learned as an intern, and that really spoke levels for her. Right. So I would say your goals don't need to be as grandiose as they need to be. You should probably start small. Start from, hey, who can I be speaking with when I get in? Like how do I cultivate my relationships in that line? I hope I've answered that question. But again, if you feel like I could do more, I could definitely do more. Sorry, was there any other question I know there's many, but was there any one that I missed that maybe I could explore further?
Well, so I just popped in one last question there for you.
Okay.
Then we'll wrap it up, yeah, in the chat, yeah.
Okay, so there are so many career options out there, especially with the course I've done. So you've done precision medicine analytics. How do I handle the uncertainty and the overwhelming feeling of having to settle on one path? There's so many fears of making the wrong choices, especially at this point. What advice would you give? Networking is also a key still to have. How should an introvert handle networking? All right, so I love this question, right? As an introvert, I'm an introvert myself. I don't know if you know this, right? But I am, right? I always give myself room to be nervous for the first 10 minutes, and then I start to exhibit extroverted tendencies, right? As an introvert, I'm going to ask you to it's a weird one because I know we promote being your authentic self, but as an introvert, I'm going to ask you to evolve a little bit, right? Start to exhibit extroverted tendencies. And the reason why I'm saying that is throw yourself out there, right? Your authentic self is an introvert. And sometimes there's this thing that we call a social battery, right? Introverts have a social battery. They can take in as so much. So at some point, I would always say, as an introvert, go into networking scenarios, go to APNI stuff when APNI, has, various of events. Go in there, and when you think you've had enough, get out. Like you don't have to stay for the full thing. Go in there, network as much as you can. They have segmentations where you can actually network, and then when it's time to go, just go. You don't even need to wait to the end. So, and the first question, which is also a really good question, you wanted to see how you manage uncertainties. My biggest thing is always make a calculated decision. Make your decision calculated. So you always have to understand which of the three options that you're uncertain about do you feel like you're drawn to the most, right? If you feel like you're drawn to one of the things and not really the other ones, go for it. And another thing I will say as well is just because you chose one line of work and it sets you on one path doesn't mean you can't choose another line of work. I very quickly explained when I started in recruitment, I thought HR was for me. Like I genuinely thought that. And at some point I was so scared because I was like, I have a master's in this thing, so why don't I like it? Do you know what I mean? And at some point I had to tell myself that I need to go back. I need to go back and do stuff that I actually like. I don't believe in the one career aspects, even if you're like, the differences between being a barrister maybe and a solicitor. Like if you really want to explore something, you definitely can do it. Just because you're set in one direction doesn't mean you can't make another one. So I do. I'll end with this, okay, and I do apologize. If you need to fall into one path, fall into that path. If you decide it's actually not the path for you anymore, fall into another path. And if you decide that's not the path for you anymore, fall into another path. Because at the end of the day, like I think one of the things like we undermine a lot is that your entire life is such a long time. Like your life doesn't start or it doesn't end at like 30 or 40 as people would like to tell you. I think one of the prime examples is the person that Colonel Sanders, the person that owns KFC. Like he became really affluent in what his late 60s or late 70s even. Like he became a very big person after he had done what people would say, being in the past that people would say, oh yeah, he was in the wrong path. At some point he found himself. Now he's like his memory is a picture of a happy guy selling fried chicken. Do you know what I mean? I just think that you should take that into consideration as well. I don't necessarily think there is such a thing known as as the wrong path. And you know, I do feel your what's the word? I do feel what you're saying. I feel like when you're saying this, your parent is speaking to you, and my parents did the same thing to me as well. And let me tell you, the day you decide, I don't care what you think, is the day you actually start living for yourself. I really hope that helps you.
Thanks so much, Innocent. There were a lot of nuggets in there, right? And what I love most is like fall into that path, right? You never know. There's no right or wrong path. Actually, there is the wrong path, not illegal jobs, but fall into the right path.
Definitely not that.
You never know what you will learn from it. And like Audrey had shared, she started off as in fundraising. Now she's a business analyst. Tomorrow she could be a CEO. Like it's life, right? Not everybody has it figured out, but take it on briefly. So thanks so much, Audrey, Innocent and Yemi, for speaking to us and answering our questions. I'm gonna pass over to Daniela. Don't know if she's on the call to close us out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Edima. Once again.